Hey guys, Bubba here with the BubbaNews, all in one word, all in one news. How are you guys doing tonight? Goodness, it's hard to keep up. It's now Tuesday, May 28th. I'm doing this recording at almost 11 p.m. I took a day off yesterday, Monday. I needed to take a break from all this news. Seriously, sometimes this stuff will give you PTSD when you're trying to put all the pieces together and try to line it up and whatnot. But oh man, here we are. It is now May 28th. Goodness, guys, we are getting close to Shavuot, Pentecost time frame, and we're going to talk about that too at the end. But we're going to talk a lot tonight about excuse me there, a deal or no deal, because you know what, with the Middle East, with Gaza and Hamas, the hostage deal, deal or no deal there, or we're going to talk about the Iranian nuclear deal, of course. But quit blabbing, Bubba. Just get back to the news. Let's get going. Well, you know what? Let's just start off with where we left off the other night, because more and more countries are turning on Israel. That's no joke. And this came out on Monday, and the UK is now agreeing to recognize the new state of Palestine, and the turning on Israel is full steam ahead. The UK must impose sanctions on Israel to meet legal obligations, say more than 800 lawyers now. So a letter to the Prime Minister signed by retired Supreme Court justices, among others, say that their lack of action will imperil the international legal system. In other words, if the UK doesn't go after Israel, basically they're going to, if they don't turn on Israel 100%, then this will stop the flow of international legalities. And the UK believes that they would then be interfering with the global legal process, especially with the International Criminal Court case against Israel. Goodness. So there's, they want to use all available means to secure an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. They want to secure the lifting of Israel's ban upon the UN Relief and Works Agency throughout the entire operation, the UN RWA. So they want to impose financial sanctions on Israeli ministers, but they also want to review existing trade ties with Israel and suspending the 2030 roadmap for closer UK-Israel partnership and impose trade sanctions upon Israel. They also want to confirm that the UK will adhere to its obligation to execute arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court in relation to the Israeli ministers. So that's really heating up. And that's going to keep growing too, but you know what? The Bible does not need to be rewritten. It just needs to be reread. Seriously, guys, if you guys aren't reading the Bible and digging in lately, please, I strongly suggest and recommend that you do, because the scriptures are literally screaming off the pages right now as we're growing into the end times. I mean, everything with Iran, the Persia's mentioned there in Ezekiel 38, I believe, verse 5. But you know what? Iran, Aragachi, he came out yesterday, and he's talking about, as this gets going, he stated that what we've basically known all along. There's not going to be any nuclear deal to even talk about very soon. If the UK position is zero enrichment in Iran, then there's nothing left for us to discuss on the nuclear issue. So we've got to keep an eye on that. We're going to come back to that. But I saw this, and I wanted to throw this up too, because I wonder if this is just the beginning. I don't know if you guys saw this story, but AI disobeyed the human instructions and acted on its own. The AI then destroyed the shutdown safety mechanism that is incorporated into the program that AI used in its knowledge, or its data bank of knowledge, to prevent this AI from even being shut down. I mean, what happened was the AI model was created by OpenAI, the owner of ChatGPT. And it was caught by researchers disobeying human instructions and preventing its shutdown. This is Donald Trump's business partner, Sam Altman. He owns OpenAI. He's the same dude that has that eye scanning orb that wants to record your iris, your eyeball, and give you WorldCoin crypto for your biometric information. So this is the newest O3 model developed by OpenAI, and it's the smartest and most capable to date. But basically, the O3 model sabotaged a shutdown mechanism to prevent itself from being shut off. So experts have warned that this AI software could gain independence and resist any human efforts to control it in the future. Well, it sounds like that time's already now. Ay. But, you know, just like a bad assembly line of countries falling into place, Australia is next. We just talked about the UK. Now, Australia yesterday. The top representative to the UN, James Larson, raised speculation of an imminent shift in Australian policy by saying in a speech Monday night that a two-state solution was the only hope for ending the cycle of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. So he called on the Albanese government to sanction Prime Minister Netanyahu and recognize a Palestinian statehood within weeks. A move he said could help resuscitate stalled efforts to achieve a two-state solution. So Australia's now on the boat. They're going to announce recognition of Palestine come this UN June conference, June 17th through the 20th. Because France and Saudi Arabia are still co-hosting the high-profile meeting at the UN, June 17th through the 20th, aimed at creating momentum for a two-state solution. And many nations, including France, is going to use this conference to officially recognize a Palestinian statehood. So here's what he said. He said the recognition is their policy, and Penny Wong and her colleagues have been wrestling only with the timing. And the timing now is absolutely right. This is going to get nuts. But even last night, and we're going to talk about tonight, because tonight they did this as well. But very interesting, because this happened last night. AWACS aircraft were flying there in Turkey, near the western border of Iran. NATO's E-3A Sentry AWACS aircraft was active over eastern Turkey, monitoring Iran. And the E-3 Sentry is an airborne warning and control system. That's what AWACS means. And this aircraft provides all-weather surveillance, command, control, and communications needed by commanders of the United States, NATO, and other allied air defense forces. So this is the premier air battle command and control aircraft in the world today. But on Sunday, 4 additional KC-135 Stratotanker refueling aircraft arrived in Diego Garcia. So now satellites are showing, and I forgot to throw up, and maybe I did later in the Twitter or the Telegram here or the YouTube, whatever we're doing. It's hard to keep up, but I think I have a more clear picture. But anyway, there's now 4 B-52 bombers. There's 10 of the KC-135 Stratotankers, the refuelers. There's a C-17 aircraft there. There's a 6 F-15Es. I believe they're Eagles that are now protecting it. And there's one C-5 Galaxy there. So there still could be additional aircraft under those 4 shelters there. It'd be wild if there was still a couple B-2s there. And they just made us think that they all left. So I don't know if the Israel or maybe the U.S. is thinking about attack plans on Iran, but, you know, I do expect to see more military movement in the next few days. And a lot of you guys saw that stuff tonight with New York Trapper, and I guess there was a bunch of those EAM messages going out. And there was that Skymaster nuclear exercise going on today and tonight. That's what that was, but still, there's going to be a lot of movement. And I believe that a lot of movement that these guys are starting to catch on could be stuff that's heading towards the Middle East as well. So somehow or another, I expect this weekend to be fairly explosive in nature. At least the very strong possibility is there. That's for sure. I mean, even last week, Trump cautioned Prime Minister Netanyahu in a phone call, and he told Bibi not to take any action that could jeopardize the negotiations between the United States and Iran on the new nuclear deal. But Israel's been making preparations to swiftly strike Iran's nuclear sites if the U.S. and Iran nuclear talks break down in the coming days and weeks. One source said that Israel believes its operational window for a successful strike could close soon. So Israel's starting to get antsy. And some U.S. officials are worried that Netanyahu might order a strike on Iran. That's what the U.S. is worried about, that Netanyahu might go ahead, even without getting a green light from Trump. Of course, the Ayatollah Khamenei's game is to have talks, to continue to stall out, and to slowly keep the clock moving forward. But meanwhile, they continue to work around the clock to obtain their goal, and that's nuclear warheads. And I'm going to show this real quick clip from I-24 News, but, Israel's bracing for the possible collapse of the Iran and U.S. talks, and it just reminds me of Psalm 83, verse 4, where it says, they have said, come and let us wipe them out as a nation, that the name of Israel be remembered no more.
A lot of reports that Israel is in the advanced planning stages of a strike on Iran's nuclear sites in Iran.
Not only in advanced stages, Laura, but such a strike wouldn't be a one-off. This would be reportedly days, if not more than a week long of strikes targeting the wide array of Iran's nuclear program, as we can see now on the map, is peppered with nuclear sites and military sites, all posing a direct threat to Israel. The sites in yellow, nuclear sites; the sites in red are military sites. But let's zero in on some key facilities that, if there were to be a strike on Iran's nuclear program, these are the key names that we would hear. So let's start with Natanz and Fordow. These are the key uranium enrichment sites in Iran, closer to the capital, Tehran.
I'm going to pause it real quick, just because Arak, Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan, and the Bushehr, that's all in Elam.
And you have Arak, a more strategic site, heavy water reactor and production facility. Then you have in Isfahan, which can be described as the nuclear capital of Iran, where you have a uranium conversion plant, fuel manufacturing site, and other key nuclear facilities. And then you have Parchin, more to the north. That is a missile site where traces of uranium have been found in the past by the IAEA inspectors, and Iran refuses to give further information. Here down to the south, you have Bushehr, a strategic nuclear power station, and altogether these are some of the key sites, Laura, in Iran's nuclear program. It says that it is only for civilian purposes. Obviously, the facts pose otherwise, in addition to the rhetoric of the Iranian regime, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, multiple times saying that Israel needs to be wiped off the map. And so if Israel were to strike, these would be the leading sites, and the names should ring a bell in the ears of the viewers.
Israel needs to be wiped off the map. Psalm 83, verse 4. This is starting to get cuckoo town. But yesterday and today, this was kind of wild too, because they met in D.C. These three guys here. You've got Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer on the right. You've got the Israeli Mossad Director David Barnea there on the left, and you've got the Middle East envoy there, Steve Witkoff. Well, they all three met with senior Pentagon officials. And this Middle East trio was discussing the ongoing efforts to reach a hostage and ceasefire deal in Gaza, but as well as also talk about the nuclear talks with Iran. So, Israel remains America's number one indispensable ally, the only democracy in the Middle East and a critical partner to counter Iran's nuclear threats. While most foreign aid vanishes into corrupt regimes, collaboration with Israel directly strengthens U.S. security, intelligence sharing, and defense innovation. The nuclear talks with Iran are for one purpose only. Seriously. Just like how police have to go through certain things before a wiretap, they must show every other avenue was explored. It's called exhaustion. We've all heard the term. They've exhausted all efforts, etc. Well, Israel's close to getting U.S. permission to strike. But this also is coming out. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, is likely to release its quarterly report on Iran this week. The last quarterly report was actually there on February 26th, 27th time frame. So the report's going to include details on the pace and the scope of Iran's enrichment, as well as other aspects of its program. So this report could show some evidence of whether or not talks with the U.S. have brought any concessions from Iran yet. The U.S. is outwardly hopeful, at least to the media. And Trump is telling Netanyahu to hold off on undermining the nuclear negotiations and talks. I mean, it's pretty significant because if the U.S. has asked Israel to give them a week, this is what Trump's saying basically. They're asking Israel to give the United States 1 week to see if any progress has been made. Possibly a reference to the International Atomic Energy Agency's findings that are coming out. But you know what? Last night, the new moon began. And tonight is May 28th, so it's still pretty dark. But, you know, New York Times last night, it came out and said... Actually, that was, late last night. U.S. intelligence estimates that Israel could prepare a strike on Iran in as little as 7 hours once the command is given. And this is raising concerns in Washington about limited time to pressure Netanyahu to abort this potential attack. After meeting Trump in April, Netanyahu ordered Israeli officials to continue planning a strike on Iran, including a smaller operation that wouldn't require U.S. help. So Israel has strike plans on Iran that range from surgical hits to prolonged bombing of facilities, even in dense urban areas. And the Israeli plan literally is to get it done in 72 hours to 84 hours, 3 to 3.5 days. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. I stayed up way too late last night. For those of you on Discord, thank you so much for chatting with me. If you guys are on our little Discord server thing that Asset Ministries and whatnot, he set up and helped us out. But it's been a lot of fun. So I've been able to chat with a lot of you guys and whatnot, communicate, text with you. So feel free to join with us. You know what? But being born in sin wasn't your fault. But if you die in your sin, it will be your fault because Jesus does save. Jesus said that specifically. You are going to die in your sins if you do not believe in him. Oh, man, it's getting so close, guys. Even this morning, Indonesian president said that he's ready to open diplomatic ties with Israel if Palestine is recognized as an independent state after he had a meeting with Emmanuel Macron, of all things. So Emmanuel Macron flew into Indonesia and met with this guy on the two-state solution. This is the Indonesian president. In the Indonesians, this guy is very important with the Temple Mount and the two-state solution because he's all part of the Islamic side of Asia. That's what Indonesia and this guy represents. So it'll be interesting to watch. Oh, I'm so grateful for Psalm 46, verse 1. God is our refuge and our strength and a very present help in our times of trouble. Sometimes we do. We just need to trust in the Lord and just lean into him in everything that we do. Man. Guys, it's getting so close. Remember how we were talking about the iron beam, the laser system there in Israel? Well, they revealed that its iron beam light laser defense system has shot down dozens of drones and other aerial threats over the course of the war. In fall 2024, the Jerusalem Post had learned that the iron beam laser produced by Rafael had been used in operational situations, but it was barred from reporting on it at the time. And in October 2024, Rafael showcased its latest defense capabilities in D.C., including this new light beam laser-based interception that's being integrated into the Trophy multitasking defense platform. So defense sources say that the iron beam light laser was used against threats from Hezbollah and Hamas already so far. And they started using it this past fall, apparently. And repeated top Israeli official statements have predicted that by the end of this year, the main iron beam laser will be more widely used and publicly deployed. In other words, it's going to go on full bore. So my question is, what other technology does Israel have ready to go? Apparently more than we know. But yeah, Trump did warn Netanyahu not to attack Iran yet. But that could change at any moment. It could even change with a phone call. Trump said this today: if we can make a deal, it will save a lot of lives.
We're having very good discussions with him, and I said, I don't think it's appropriate right now. Because if we can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, with inspections and no trust. I don't trust anybody. So no trust. I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors, we can take whatever we want, we can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? Two ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment. Could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal, and if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
See how he's trying to still posture that there's still a chance. So I don't know. But I did find out today that the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, that the Director General's comprehensive report on Iran is likely to come out this Friday, May 30th. And this report could be a doozy, because I remember reading about senior IAEA, these officials, about 2 years ago, that said that if Iran doesn't provide technical, plausible explanations for safeguards, that eventually the IAEA would be forced to connect the dots themselves. So, the Director General of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, he said that the comprehensive report on Iran's safeguards, non-cooperation, will come out soon. So he's going to show by his side that they're not behaving, and there is technical, and there is nuclear, and Iran is not being a good boy. He is being a bad boy. The Prince Persia, he's nuts. But he said it's going to be a comprehensive, and it's going to be a big report. So this could be a big weekend. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. I mean, Iran denies the reports of a nuclear agreement with the U.S. because they deny that they're going to have any nuclear agreement with the U.S. that will include a temporary pause in uranium enrichment. No way, Jose. Iran will not agree to halt uranium enrichment as a result of ongoing talks with the United States, even temporarily, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman declared to the Tehran Times today. And this followed a Reuters report this morning that suggested that Iran might consider the move to halt their uranium enrichment for the unfreezing of billions of dollars of assets that are being held by the United States. So why is Iran under significant pressure? And they might accelerate its race towards the bomb in the coming days. Well, the IAEA has been raising concerns about Iran's failure to provide the necessary information and cooperation to resolve long-standing issues related to undeclared nuclear material and activities. So the IAEA Board of Governors has previously stated that if Iran fails to cooperate fully, further action will be necessary. And following the coming June meeting, if the board does indeed report Iran to the United Nations Security Council, well, this could get really interesting because Russia is likely to veto any resolution against Iran. However, France or the UK could exercise the option to snap back previous sanctions under Resolution 2231, which endorsed the 2015 JCPOA nuclear deal, and they adjusted their sanctions on Iran. So Resolution 2231 includes a mechanism for reimposing those sanctions through a mechanism on Iran that Russia cannot veto. And that snapback mechanism expires in October 2025. So Iran's under the gun. Given these developments, you can understand why Israel will literally have no choice but to attack if Iran will not agree to dismantle all of its enrichment facilities and get rid of all of the already enriched to weapons-grade uranium. It's literally just a matter of time. So it could kick off this weekend. Or, like we were discussing with some of my buddies there in the Discord last night, Stormy, it's very possible that the Harpazo is holding back all of these prophetic wars that are getting ready to kick off. That's how close we are. But just, even talking about whether we were doing deal or no deal Middle East style, Bezalel Smotrich today, he came out with this. He stated that he will not allow a partial deal with Hamas. But the foreign minister, Gideon Saar, said that if there's a chance to get released hostages, Israel should take it. So the U.S. envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, announced that a new hostage deal proposal will be sent to Israel and Hamas. But Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, seen right here in the picture, stated that he will not allow a partial deal with Hamas. So the previous proposal on the table offered the release of 10 live hostages on the first day of the deal in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire. But the main point of contention between the parties is what will happen on the final day of the ceasefire, if no further agreements are reached. But even Netanyahu will say that this is not a deal worthy of pursuing. Literally, the days of Hamas are numbered. Man, it's starting to get crazy. But I saw this too, switching back over to like Crazy Town with the Mark of the Beast system being set up in real time. This came out today. Everything's coming together for the global digital ID. Greece has launched its unified digital ID system with the new personal citizen number, or PCN. The PCN is the new universal ID for Greek citizens across all public services and will replace the old numbers issued by various state agencies. But Greece's prime minister said that the new personal number will be assigned to every citizen, and this will become the key to unlock or to be able to do business with any transaction within the public sector. So soon, you won't be able to buy or sell until you get this thing. Here's what it says. The personal number is unique and will not change throughout a citizen's life. It consists of 12 characters, 3 alphanumeric elements, 2 of which can be selected, and the person's tax identification number. But this update is aligned with the European Union Digital Identity Wallet, the EUDI wallet, the digital wallet. The European Commission and the World Health Organization announced a landmark digital health partnership back in June 2023, where they were taken over. So the World Health Organization took over the European Union system of the digital COVID-19 certificate to establish a global system that will facilitate global mobility and protect citizens across the world from future health threats. This was the first building block of the World Health Organization's Global Digital Health Certification Network. We talked about this a couple years ago, but they're putting this in place to develop a wide range of digital products to deliver a better health for all. Yeah, so that's all going down, but you know, the subscribers today were asking me about that Skymaster nuclear codes that New York Prepper was discussing, but there's still something probably that's going on, because even tonight, remember I just showed the image a little bit ago, but last night, but now tonight, there's 2 aircraft that are monitoring Iran. Last night we saw the AWACS plane up there in Turkey. Well, it's back, and now there's one there in the Persian Gulf. And look right there between those 2 airplanes, in that area there of Western Iran is Elam. So something's going on. They are literally monitoring the Elam area. Because the United States can fly over Iraq. So why aren't they doing that? They're literally doing this over Elam. And they might pretty soon. This is starting to get crazy. But here's something else really crazy. I was talking to some friends about this last night. But there's some major fires going on in Saskatchewan and Manitoba provinces in Canada. These things are huge. The province of Manitoba today issued a province-wide state of emergency due to multiple active wildfires that have burned over 1/3 acres already. These fires have led to the largest evacuation in recent memory, according to local Manitobans, and will require a significant resource and cooperation from all levels of government to deal with this. So thousands of residents, literally, I saw so many thousands of homes have been lost already, but thousands of residents have been forced to flee their homes in the region due to the ongoing wildfires. And due to continued red flag warnings, it's likely that the fire will continue to burn out of control for some time. At least a lot of this out there is really out there, so it's not really close to the houses. Man, but anyway, you know what? This was kind of nuts too that came out today, because there was a huge leak Over 2 million documents were leaked, which outlined the inner workings of Russia's nuclear facilities. This was made public by German media press earlier today. This is really bad, not just because of the scale, but because of what was leaked. They actually leaked the actual physical and digital layout of Russia's strategic nuclear infrastructure. So it compromises not just site security, but the viability of second strike assets. Russia's foreign enemies now have insight into structural vulnerabilities that could take years and billions of dollars to fix. This was huge today. This isn't just embarrassing. It could actually force Russia to rethink entire segments of its nuclear posture. So that could explain some of the EAMs tonight too. I don't know. But it looks like someone on the Russian side seriously messed up. And most likely, it came from their own contractor systems or procurement, where sensitive documents like base blueprints, tunnel layouts, IT specifications were accidentally uploaded without a proper classification or redaction. And it's not the first time that this has happened in Russia. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. But Israel is still under the gun more and more and more and more. So after this with Russia, the UAE got really mad at Israel this week. We're going to talk about the UAE because they really laid into Israel this week over their Jerusalem flag march. And they characterized it as an annual spectacle of unchecked violence and extremist provocation, while the UAE issued a rare warning against Israel. If Jerusalem does not take decisive steps against doing this in the future, which I find interesting because the UAE is part of the Abraham Accords. This is the second time ever that an Israeli envoy has ever been summoned by the UAE authorities, and the first time since the Gaza war began. So the meeting at the Emirati Foreign Ministry saw the harshest rebuke that Abu Dhabi has ever conveyed to an Israeli official. So the Emirati anger was particularly notable because the UAE has kept its ambassador in Tel Aviv. They've maintained daily flights to Israel, and they've even boosted economic cooperation, even since the war began with Gaza, unlike other countries that have pulled away from Israel. The UAE stood strong. Well, that may be coming to a close very soon. But I guess the scenes of Monday's flag march appears to have been too much for Abu Dhabi to accept quietly. So thousands of young religious national participants, they were filmed chanting racist slogans such as "Death to Arabs" and "May your village burn" as they marched through the Muslim quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. And some participants verbally harassed and some even physically assaulted some of the Palestinian locals. But that happens every year because they always get into fights. But revelers vandalized property, though they made an exception not to damage a number of the ATM machines, because these ATMs had signs on them explaining to the participants that these ATMs along the way, well, they belong to fellow Jews. In other words, leave us alone. So several far-right ministers participated in the March on Jerusalem Day. And that marked the reunification of the city from the Six-Day War there in 1967. And Netanyahu spoke to participants at a ceremony capping off the event of the day. Even Israel's police commissioner said that no arrests were made and that only a small number of participants were briefly detained, saying that only those that misbehaved, they literally made up about 1% of the revelers. But this guy here on the right-hand side, Mohammed bin Zayed, MBZ, this is the UAE guy without his official Arab attire. He's the guy that looked kind of stoned the other night. Here's another one. But, this is not an isolated incident is what the UAE was saying, because they were saying against Israel, this happens every year. And year after year, Israel allows it to unfold without consequence. So the UAE is making it clear to Israel, in no uncertain terms, that they expect Israel to take decisive steps to put an end to this. Here's what the UAE official warned Israel. He said they would do well to take this expectation extremely seriously. So a separate statement from the UAE Foreign Ministry on its decision to summon Israeli ambassador also took issue with the Jerusalem Flag Day March, but also Monday there was a visit made by hundreds of Israeli nationalists to the Temple Mount, and they didn't like that. And of course, among the visitors was National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who said he prayed there in violation of the so-called status quo, quote-unquote, under which the non-Muslim prayer is banned, he said. Ben-Gvir declared that his policy overseeing the police has upended the status quo by allowing Jews to openly pray and lie fully prostrate at the Flashpoint Temple Mount. Ben-Gvir had next to him several other lawmakers from his party and other far-right lawmakers. And another one was filmed walking across the site with an Israeli flag, declaring the Temple Mount is in our hands. So basically, Israel just stated the Al-Aqsa Mosque is now in their hands. So the UAE Foreign Ministry statement said Israeli actions in Jerusalem on Monday represent a dangerous incitement against all Muslims. And this is a flagrant violation of the sanctity of the holy city. Abu Dhabi called on Israel to condemn these hostile acts and hold perpetrators accountable without exception for ministers like Ben-Gvir and officials. But MBZ is a major part of the coming two-state solution. Mohammed bin Salman there on the left and MBZ on the right are working hand in hand. They can't wait for the UN meeting on the question of Palestine coming up June 17th through the 20th. Ay. I don't know about you guys, but this is just nutty Professor Town. Everything is coming together. And a lot of things still, I believe, could kick off for this weekend. The stuff with Gaza, with Hamas, Israel's still holding back a lot. Israel's making moves, but they're still, for the most part, they haven't pressed the go button for Hamas because they're still trying to get the Gazan people to go down to the humanitarian aid corridors where they've been ransacked the past 2 days. That the U.S. company's been down there giving out food. Yesterday alone, they gave out 400,000 meals. So there's a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. Speaking of this weekend, on May 31st, actually it's, what is it now? Goodness, it's 24:48. Goodness, about 70 hours from now, it's 11:30 Eastern. But there on Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be meeting there with Isaiah 153. And he lives south of me down there towards the Ohio River. But we're going to be talking about the importance of Shavuot. And this is a very exciting year. Man, there's so much coming up, guys. It's so exciting. So I'm going to be there with him. We're going to be going over this stuff. And there's a lot of things we're going to talk about and point out. But you know what? They're talking even on the Hebrew calendar side. Shavuot this year is it's Sunday, June 1st. And it begins at sunset Monday, June 1st. Or Sunday, June 1st. It goes Monday, and then it ends, I believe, there on the 3rd. But June 2nd is day number 153 of the year. Remember the 153 fish? But Shavuot is also the 15th day of the 3rd month. There's something really special about this one. This year. I was just over there at Aaron there, got a minute, and watching his stuff, and I love the guy to death. We both differ on some things, but great guy. But my point being is he's looking at like June 8th. I'm looking at June 1st. And I'll show why, but you know what? There's something really wild about this year with Shavuot and Pentecost 2025. And it comes together, and here's why. If you look over here, this is the Essenes calendar, the Dead Sea Scroll calendar. And I'm a big fan of this after digging in deeper and learning about this. And the Essenes, basically where John the Baptist came from. Those, it goes way deep, but the Essenes, they didn't die off. In the times of Jesus, they all became Christians. And the Essenes were part of the early church. It was really neat. We can even read about them in the book of Acts. But anyway, my point being is Pentecost, look over here, June 1st on the left-hand side. See there? June 2nd, Monday, June 3rd, Tuesday, June 1, Sunday, 15. Anyway, my point being, I'm getting all excited. Okay, let's wrap this up, Bubba. We've been going 40 minutes or so. All right, here's my thing. Okay, so I started checking this out, right? So on the bottom is Shavuot on the Hebrew calendar. And I have it underlined there on the Essenes calendar in red. So I was looking at this. These dates never line up. Shavuot on the Hebrew calendar and Pentecost on the Essenes calendar. See how Pentecost over here is on the left-hand side, June 2nd of last year, whereas Shavuot was June 11 through 13 there underneath the red. Okay, well then here's 2026. Shavuot 2026 begins May 21st there in the upper right-hand corner, underlined in the red. But Pentecost on the Essenes calendar is there on the left-hand side, May 31st. Well, you know what? Something's really wild about this year. They all line up. Pentecost on the Essenes calendar lines up perfectly with Shavuot on the Hebrew calendar. There's something very special about this year, I believe, guys. My point being is we are getting so close. And you know what? People are going to throw out the Matthew 24 verse 36. No one knows the day nor the hour. I get that. I'm not calling a date, but I'm just looking at some possibilities. And this is what I'm really looking at. Just because there's, on the candelabra there with Hanukkah, the 7 candles, there's 3 on the left-hand side for the spring feast. There's 3 on the right-hand side for the fall feast. And there's 1 candle right in the middle. That's Shavuot, Pentecost. And this holiday, this feast has not been fulfilled by Jesus yet. Jesus fulfilled the first 3 feasts. Jesus has not yet fulfilled Shavuot. But I believe he very well might with us on Pentecost, June 1st time frame. Anyway, so that's what we're going to be talking about. I think that's it. So we'll wrap it up now. Thank you guys so much for watching. But my point being, guys, is none of us knows the day nor the hour. Matthew 24:36. But actually, when you dive into Matthew 24, verse 36, no one knows the day nor the hour. You have to read verse 35 to find out the context. What is it talking about? No one knows the day nor the hour. The day heaven and earth pass away. Of that day and hour, no one knows. Not the rapture. That's another thing. Just because we're getting so close, too, you can always tell when people aren't looking for the blessed hope because they think it's some kind of blasted joke. Because every time you talk about your excitement about the soon return of the Lord Jesus Christ coming in the clouds, they always throw up this verse. No one knows the day nor the hour. You guys know people like that? I do. Anyway, thanks, guys, for listening to me. You guys have been such a blessing. We took Mrs. Bubba today to physical therapy. And then if we're still here, there on June 6th, which would be on this calendar, it looks like on Friday. Oh, snap. So we are really that close. Wow, guys. We are literally days away from a possibility. Harpazo us out of here. This is getting so exciting. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I ask for your prayers because we all just want to finish strong for the Lord Jesus Christ. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, reach out to any one of us because Jesus Christ is coming so soon. I just can't wait. Man, there's so much coming up. I'll see you guys here, there, in the air. Maranatha, guys. Jesus Christ is coming so very soon. Let's do another video tomorrow night. But until then, we'll go get some dinner and we'll talk to you later. Bye.